जब तेरी यादों की बारिश में भीगूं, गिरती है मुझ पे बिजलियां। मांगू मैं रात और दिन, शाम और सवेरे, रब से बस तेरी यारियां। तेरी आहें भरूं मैं दुनिया भूल जाऊं, तू है ज़मीं तू ही आसमां, तू सितारा मेरा तू है जहां, मैं भी वहां, तू है दिल मेरा तू है जान।
हा 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 हा। होश वालों को खबर क्या, बेखुदी क्या चीज है। होश वालों को खबर क्या, बेखुदी क्या चीज है। इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, जिंदगी क्या चीज है। होश वालों को खबर क्या, बेखुदी क्या चीज है। उनसे नजरें क्या मिली, रोशन फिजाएं हो गई। हा 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 हा, ला 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 ला। उनसे नजरें क्या मिली, रोशन फिजाएं हो गई। आज जाना प्यार की जादूगरी क्या चीज है। आज जाना प्यार की जादूगरी क्या चीज है। इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, जिंदगी क्या चीज है। खुलती जुल्फों ने सिखाई मौसमों को शायरी। ला 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 ला। खुलती जुल्फों ने सिखाई मौसमों को शायरी। झुकती आँखों ने बताया मैं कशी क्या चीज है। झुकती आँखों ने बताया मैं कशी क्या चीज है। इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए, जिंदगी क्या चीज है। हम लबों से कह न पाए उनसे हाले दिल कभी ला 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 हम लबों से कह न पाए उनसे हाले दिल कभी और वो समझे नहीं ये खामोशी क्या चीज़ है और वो समझे नहीं ये खामोशी क्या चीज़ है इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए इश्क कीजिए फिर समझिए जिंदगी क्या चीज़ है
Good evening. Welcome. My name is Jelani Cobb, and I'm the Dean of Columbia Journalism School. And on behalf of this institution, I would like to welcome you all here for this memorial for Fazil Khan. Before I took this position, I sought the counsel of one of the prior deans, our faculty member, Nick Lemon, and I thought a lot about what it entailed, but I wanted to ask him about the things that you might not anticipate. And he said, you should be mindful that responsibility for leading a community often extends beyond the minding of budget lines and tending to faculty concerns. It extends to sometimes guiding a community through the travails, and in this instance, tragedies that arise unexpectedly. I thought about his advice to me this past weekend when I got word of Mr. Khan's passing. Anyone who's here knows, who is here at the journalism school, knows that I begin my messages to this institution with the words, "Dear CJS community." And we might think of a community as a group of people bound by common interests, common concerns, and a common regard. I'm keenly aware that nothing I can say can diminish the weight of the loss of Fazil Khan. In life, we're born, we grow, develop, and eventually we leave. If we are fortunate, we learn and develop, we find friends and people willing to love us along the way. And if we're truly fortunate, we're able to pass along some of what we've learned to others. The outpouring of regard and concern, the flow of sympathies that I have been witness to in the past 5 days have indeed reminded me that we are a community, that we're people bound by common interests and concerns, but also very deeply by a mutual regard. These past 5 days have been a testament to the friends and loved ones who graced Fazil's life. His work has been a testament to what he learned, to how well he has practiced the craft of reporting. I had the opportunity to read his master's thesis over the past few days, and he wrote about water levels in the Punjab region, India. And he turned what could have been an arid exploration, you'll forgive my pun here, into a deeply nuanced and human story of the consequences of how we live our lives and how we allocate our resources. Deeply researched, characterized by clean prose, in its own way, effective and moving. I said a minute ago that if we are truly fortunate, we're able to pass along some of what we've learned in our time here. I've learned in these past few days that Mr. Khan was fortunate in these very many regards, with the exception of his years. And in the midst of our grief, we have the capacity to do one thing that he was not allowed to, and that is to pass along what he learned. And that can be determined by how well we maintain his memory, by how well we share his work, by how well we keep him in our hearts and minds, and how well we maintain him as an enduring part of our community. Thank you and welcome. And the next person you will hear from will be Liz Willen. Thank you.
Good evening. I just want to first say I'm really angry about being here, that Fazil's death did not have to happen, and that I'm grateful for journalism and the journalists who are trying to get to the bottom of the e-bike fires that exploded all over the city, have been killing dozens of New Yorkers, and should not be where they are now, and Fazil would agree with me, I'm sure, about that. Aside from that fact that we're being brought here by tragedy, the first thing I want to do is introduce myself. I'm Liz Willen. I'm the editor-in-chief of the Hechinger Report. We are a nonprofit news outlet based at Teachers College across the street, and we were very fortunate to have Fazil as our data journalist. Very, very lucky to have had him. You trained him well, and he gave us hope. Aside from the tragedy that brings us all here today, you probably all know these have been brutal times for journalists and journalism. Layoffs, cuts, closings, the kind of incremental bad news that has pretty much marked my career as a journalist since I graduated from this very school a very long time ago. I have often been asked, why do we do this work? Why? The answer, reporters like Fazil Khan, kind, brilliant, committed to truth-telling without fear or favor. That's one answer. Fazil was the kind of journalist that made it easy to answer that question, as many of his friends and colleagues who are here tonight and who have gathered together with extraordinary speed to bring his body back home to India, to comfort his family, and to bring this presentation to you all tonight. It's been a pleasure working with all of you and feeling the unbelievable love that you had for Fazil. Our hearts go out to his family. We hope that they will be comforted by the many friends who are here and the enormous appreciation for his life. Tonight, you'll hear from his J School classmates, his colleagues at the Hechinger Report. Many of us worked for newspapers or magazines that no longer exist. Today, 14 years after we launched, we're part of a growing wave of nonprofit news outlets that launched before nonprofits became the latest trend aimed at saving journalism and democracy. Enter into that field data reporters like Fazil, who made us better from the moment he graduated from Columbia, seasoned by his work with other nonprofit outlets and eager to join our small team focused on inequality and innovation in education. He embraced our mission. He worked tirelessly to support it, making sense behind the scenes of scores of spreadsheets and endless data that became prize-winning stories. He was not just a man of numbers. When I was hoping he would join the Hechinger Report, we talked a lot about his love of literature and our book club. It was immediately clear that Fazil's potential was limitless, and his death is a tragedy that none of us can understand. And yet, it is journalists and the work of journalism that may provide us some hope, some answers in the months to come, including our friends at other news outlets who are already working on topics that, like the ones Fazil spent months on, that prompted change and legislation. You'll hear a little bit more about his work from some of those colleagues tonight. We'll also hear from people who are involved in writing about e-bikes and why they are still here when they could be, when there's been a call over and over again for safe, secure places to charge e-bikes and e-scooters. These lithium-ion batteries are found in everyday devices, and they can explode when damaged or improperly charged. That is what happened in the fire that killed Fazil. And I think he would be comforted to know that investigative reporting in his memory will carry on, and that many of us are inspired to carry on his work. That's one reason why the Hechinger Report is establishing a fellowship or scholarship in his name that will include an internship for a data journalist at the Hechinger Report. We will tell you a little bit about that more later tonight. And we also want to thank Dean Cobb and the Journalism School and Teachers College and everybody who worked so swiftly to bring together this event to honor them, to honor him. Thank you so much.
Hello everyone, my name is Ibad Rahman. I serve as the campus imam, and I'll be reciting the opening chapter of the Quran, the Fatiha, and then following that with a few words as a prayer for Fazil. أعوذ بالله من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. O Allah, dear God, the Divine, we ask you that you shower Fazil with your loving compassion, that you welcome him into his new abode with the company of the prophets, the righteous and the truth-tellers, that you make his place of burial a window into the garden, that you bless him, his family, and all his loved ones, that we would remember him most fondly, and that his gentle spiritual way of presence and carrying himself in this world be an inspiration for all of us. Ameen. Amen. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. Thanks so much for coming tonight, and thanks to the J School for having us. I'm Sheridan. I'm one of Fazil's friends from his time at Columbia. I'm going to do my best to do this, but forgive me and bear with me if I stumble. On his birthday, Fazil told me he wanted to dedicate this year to enjoying his life. Up until now, he'd spent most of his 27 years studying and working as hard as he could to build a life outside of Delhi. He knew how important it was to his parents, his dad especially, that he devoted himself to education. After moving here, graduating from Columbia, and finding a job he loved, Fazil felt like he could finally start doing things for himself. He thought by living a life filled with new experiences and joy, he could honor his dad, who passed away over a year ago, and who had spent decades working tirelessly for him to follow his dreams. He wanted to learn to drive. He wanted to rent a motorcycle and drive it upstate in the fall to watch the leaves change. He wanted to learn to swim so he could take a surfing lesson in Rockaway Beach. He wanted to travel more, to Turkey maybe. He thought it would be manageable on his next trip to India. He wanted to try sushi. But first, he wanted to master ice skating. Because Fazil was the way he was, he watched hours of YouTube videos about skating techniques, learning how to start, how to stop, to skate backwards, to make turns. I told him most people don't know how to actually do that stuff. You just like skate until you hit a wall or a kid or something. But that was not an acceptable answer to Fazil. He strongly disagreed. If you're gonna do something, he believed you better do it right. He started practicing at a neighborhood rink in Riverside Park on the weekends and evenings. One Sunday, I went with him. He swore he'd been working hard at it, but he was really so awful. He told me he thought I skated fast. I said I thought I could probably go even faster, but I was too afraid to fall. He laughed for a second, then he looked me in the eye and said falling was part of it. It's inevitable, so I shouldn't be afraid. He surely wasn't. He fell often and hard. Once he slipped so badly that he skinned his hand on a rough patch of ice, and I had to rush him to the nurse's station through like a mob of 8-year-old girls. Later that day, he pointed to a man across the rink who I guessed was in his mid-40s. He was wearing knee pads, elbow guards, a helmet, and skating very tentatively with one hand next to the wall. Fazil told me he wanted to be like that guy when he grew up. Someone who was unafraid of looking silly, who was brave enough to learn something new. I didn't tell him then, but to me he already was. He left his home and built a new life in this city. He learned to cook, he learned to code, he learned to maximize his credit card points, which he told everyone about all the time. He tried fried calamari, he visited new cities. He mourned his father so far from his family and still had the courage to get up each morning and make his tea. Now it's time for us to finish what he started, to honor him and his father. So I hope you rent a motorcycle, go upstate when the leaves change, eat sushi, surf, travel, ice skate, learn something new for no other reason than wanting to, and think of him when you do.
Good evening, all. Thank you for being here. I'm one of Fazil's friends from back home when he started his journalism career. My name's Pooja. I first crossed paths with Fazil during early chapters of his adulthood, when he stepped out of post-graduation, armed with ambition and an in for a thirst for knowledge. His journey unfolded against the backdrop of an unfamiliar terrain, yet his demeanor exuded a palpable sense of enthusiasm and determination. While we were at CNN News 18, we had a small team, and he was asked to join the team. He was extremely enthusiastic about it. One, he got away from the crowd that was there in the newsroom while having his own corner. As a child, he would fight with one of the colleagues to try and get the corner seat. Why? Because it looked outside of the newsroom. While he would fight with me when an anchor was giving out free books, because he wanted books as many as possible. While working on an 800-word story, he would read 6 or 7 books just for his research. And when he did that, I'd be like, why would you do that? Because that's setting a precedent for the rest of us. He wouldn't stop at that. He would call 4 or 5 people to just make sure what he's reading is right. So he didn't even trust the books enough. Beyond all of this, I was very curious to know what Fazil's life looked like. So I would pull Fazil to have chai with me. When I did that, we talk about random things. Who's in your family? What do you do for fun? What are your hobbies? One of those days while we were having a chat, he tells me about his love life. Actually, no, I kind of forced him to talk about his love life. And he tells me that since both of them don't have the time, what they do is, the way they spend time is while they're commuting from one way to the other in a metro. Conversations with Fazil never end with just what happened. They're long. They're always long. And he would tell you about what he thought about what love should be like, what life should be like. And it's always a conversation about what he's thinking, what he's mulling over, what he's ruminating about. Beyond his professional endeavors, Fazil's true essence shone through his roles as a son, brother, friend, and a colleague. Beneath his modest demeanor lay a reservoir of kindness and empathy, radiating warmth and solace to all who crossed his path. His willingness to share the intricacies of his life with heartfelt sincerity endeared him to many, leaving an undeniable mark on those fortunate enough to know him. Fazil was a private person, but he loved sharing his thoughts if only asked. always wanting to give detailed account. Even asked for a brief version of the story, he would be like, either you get the full version or you don't get anything. And let's not forget, as some of us may know, he loved gossip. He may not look like, but he did. Today, as we bid farewell to Fazil, we remember him not only as a brilliant journalist, but as a beacon of compassion and generosity. His departure leaves a void that cannot be easily filled, yet his legacy lives on in the laughter, smiles, and cherished memories he leaves behind. Rest in peace, Fazili. Your boundless curiosity and gentle spirit will continue to inspire us as we navigate our journeys ahead. There's a small video, a very, very small video, would encapsulate what Fazil was to his friends and to his loved ones.
किस्मत को है मंजूर क्या कीजे मिलते रहे हम बदस्तूर क्या कीजे उसे मुसलसल कर भी आओ वो जो रुकी सी राह बाकी है वो जो रुकी सी चाह बाकी है वो जो रुकी सी चाह बाकी है मेरी नजरों से नजरें मिलाकर तो देखो तुम्हें अपना ही इनमें साया दिखेगा उससे जी भर के बात कर लेना तुम सब मुश्किलें बयां कर लेना तुम्हें लगता है जो मैं समझ ना सकूंगा वो खुद ही से कह देना तुम यकीन मानो मैं खामोश रहूंगा मुझे मालूम है तुमने बहुत कुछ है देखा जो तन्हाई की भीड़ में गुम हो गए हो कोई नजदीक तुम्हारे आए भी तो कैसे खुद पर भरोसा ही जो तुम खो गए हो बस एक बार मेरी आंखों के जरिए अपनी आंखों में तो देखो औरों से क्या जितने खुद से भी हैं सब शिकवे शिकायत कर लेना तुम धुंधलाई आंखों को मैं पोंछ दूंगा नूर इनका मैं यूं ही बिखरने न दूंगा दूरियां दरमियां ये मिटाकर तो देखो मेरी नजरों से कभी नजरें मिलाकर तो देखो
On any of my birthdays.
She's never been to any of your birthdays?
Yeah.
What about the one that we had in that restaurant?
Oh, yeah.
Chotan Nawab. She was there.
So 1 out of 4.
What did you do last year? And in 2020?
2020, we did the dinner at my place.
I do remember that.
21, we did the lunch at that Indian place. She was there. Last year, I didn't do anything, right? Last year, we did like after the fact because like a week later maybe.
I'm recording this. Do a catwalk.
What?
Do a catwalk.
Catwalk?
A walk. It feel to lose to me in chess, Fazil?
I mean, if you cheat, you can win any game.
Don't. I did not cheat at all.
You took my pieces.
You
like,
played. You played.
I didn't play the whole. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Fazil.
Fazil
Happy birthday to you.
to be thankful for even though you're
It's been 5 days. ख्वाब और हकीकत, इन दोनों के दरमियान जो फासला है वो मिटते हुए देखा है मैंने। ख्वाबीदा आलम में ख्वाहिशों को मिलते हुए मकाम भी देखा है, और जिस लम्हे ये मोजज़ा हुआ था बस उसी लम्हे का किस्सा है ये। एक मामूली सी शाम थी वो, किसी भी और शाम की तरह, जिसमें तुम्हारे सिवा कुछ भी खास नहीं था। मुझे याद है अब भी तुम्हारा मेरे करीब आकर बैठना, यकीन मानो मेरी खुशी का कोई ठिकाना नहीं था। मानो किसी बुझे हुए चिराग को फिर से रोशन कर दिया हो, जैसे गर्मी से तपती हुई रूह पर बरसात की पहली बूंद आ गिरी हो। मुझे याद है मेरी गोद में तुम्हारा बेफिक्री में सोना, मेरा हाथ थाम कर न छोड़ना, जैसे मेरी मौजूदगी ही सब कुछ हो। मुझे भी वो हाथ छोड़ना गवारा नहीं था। दुनिया का तो जैसे कोई होश ही नहीं था। जमाने की हर शय मौजूद थी वहां, पर मेरी निगाह को तुम्हें देखने से फुर्सत कहाँ थी। मेरे इख्तियार में अगर होता तो वक्त रोक देता मैं, तुम्हें बस यूं ही देखते रहने की खातिर। और इसी नज़र और दिमाग की मसरूफियात के बीच वो लम्हा भी था जब सारी खुदाई को जैसे कोई हुक्म हुआ था, जब हर तरह के शोर में भी मानो खामोशी कायम हो गई थी, जब वक्त को अपने मिजाज से परे आहिस्ता चलने की हिदायत हुई थी, जब ज़र्रा ज़र्रा कोशिश में लगा था कि इश्क के वाबस्ता हर जज्बात मेरे पास मौजूद हो महसूस करने को। जब अपनी तकलीफ़ों से बेखबर तुम्हारी कुर्बत में अपनी उम्र गुजारने की दिल दलीलें दे रहा था, तब पता चला कि चाहत क्या चीज़ है। तब मालूम हुआ ज़रूरत क्या चीज़ है। तब मैंने जाना मोहब्बत क्या चीज़ है। उस लम्हे से पहले, उस लम्हे के बाद बेहिसाब पल गुजरे हैं मेरी ज़िंदगी के। कुछ भी इसके दर्जे का नहीं तो शायद सब भूल भी गया। एक वो लम्हा, वो एहसासात भूला नहीं मैं। मोहब्बत से पहली मुलाकात भूला नहीं मैं। मोहब्बत से पहली मुलाकात भूला नहीं मैं।
सफरनामा शुरू तुमसे खत्म तुम पे सफरनामा। ओ
everybody. I would also just like to say thank you all for coming. My name is Sarah. I worked with Fazil at the Hechinger Report. So about 10 minutes into Fazil's first interview for our data reporter position, a colleague sent me a quick message on Slack. She said, "I love him, let's hire him right now." His talent was immediately evident, as was his thoughtfulness and his congeniality. But more than that, he radiated what I can only describe as goodness, somehow, even via Zoom. That Slack message was the first note that I got from another coworker telling me how great Fazil was, but it was far from the last. In the year and a half that I was lucky enough to serve as his supervisor, it was not uncommon for me to hear from someone, "Hey, Fazil's great," or to just let me know how helpful he'd been on a particular project. He quickly became an integral part of our team. He pushed our journalism farther with his ambition and his creativity, and he led our efforts to explore new ways of storytelling with data. One of his hallmark achievements at Hechinger was the College Welcome Guide. It was a tool that allowed users to look up, I think, more than 4,000 colleges and universities to get a sense for what the campus climate might be like. And when our higher ed editor pitched the idea at a meeting, we were all really enthused and had absolutely no idea how to make it a reality. But Fazil was excited by the challenge. So he created something in Flourish, and then he decided what he created wasn't good enough. So he found a way to do some hard coding and create this entirely new thing I don't even think you're supposed to do with Flourish to make the graphics to his liking. His impact on our office extends far beyond what appeared on our website, though. He was an ideal colleague. In the past few days, my other coworkers have tried to sum up many of his wonderful attributes. He was genuine, brilliant, exceptionally generous, endlessly kind. Remembrances have also been flooding into our newsroom from other people who worked with him, people who met him one time, people who have never met him but were just moved and inspired by his work. I keep thinking that I'm going to have my regular debrief with him, and I can just imagine his humble confusion at this outpouring. And I hope he realized just a fraction of how many lives he touched. The pieces of him I hope to most carry with me and do my best to emulate are his genuine kindness and his good humor. As many of you in this room know, data journalism is not glamorous. It can be kind of soul-crushing at times. And in the past few days, I've been asking myself, did I ever hear Fazil complain? Even once. Anytime he would be recounting to me a data challenge or something very tedious I had asked him to do, he always did it with a smile and a good-natured, "What can you do about it?" shrug. And just last week, I was fact-checking a data set that he had been working on for months, and I sent him back some notes. There was one figure where the number we were getting was off by a single digit, and we couldn't figure out why. In the grand scheme of things, it didn't matter. It didn't affect our conclusions at all, and it would have been very easy to say, good enough, and just move on. But that's not how Fazil worked. He spent an hour and a half getting to the bottom of what was going wrong and resolving it to make sure it wouldn't be an issue for anything else. We had our final conversation last Friday, just a couple hours before the fire broke out. And he was looking towards the future. We were wrapping up a big project, and he was really excited about getting going on new things. He was thinking about Ramadan. He seemed happy. Fazil really believed in the power of journalism to do good in the world, and really wanted to be a part of that. I'm so grateful he was able to succeed at this during his far too short career, and I am just heartbroken that it ended so soon. His death is a loss for each of us personally and so many others, but it's also a loss for the larger world that is now denied the journalism that he was bound to produce. I know I speak for my newsroom when I say we are all going to miss him so much in many, many ways.
Good evening. Thank you for coming to this memorial to honor Fazil Khan. My name is Kristen Lombardi. I am the program director and editor of Columbia Journalism Investigations. Fazil was one of our fellows in 2021-2022. Much has been said about Fazil as a talented journalist, and it's all true. I've described him as a rising star. When he left our program in 2022, I believed he was destined for great things. He did many great things, even as his career has been cut short, his promise snuffed out. But when I think about Fazil, I don't think about the published stories. I remember the often tedious moments that occurred during the long slog of our reporting on mental health care for children who lost parents to COVID-19. These were the moments Fazil shined in subtle yet important ways. I first met Fazil in the spring of 2021 on Zoom, a face over the screen. He was quiet, unassuming, but his eyes lit up, impassioned, whenever he spoke about data. Not just his love of numbers, but also how much he enjoyed helping his newsroom colleagues understand data. It brought him pleasure to be able to give back, he said. I could tell he was young. He turned 25 during his fellowship year. But at that moment, to me, he seemed wise beyond his years. I saw in Fazil the embodiment of CJI's collaborative spirit. It was so intrinsic to who Fazil is that I never had to remind him to put his ego aside to make the story the star. And soon Fazil was bringing that spirit to CJI. He helped his fellow CJI colleagues with their data and coding skills. He checked and double-checked their math. There were other moments during our 16 months of reporting when I watched Fazil overcome his own trepidations. As comfortable as he was with analyzing data, he admitted he was the opposite with traditional shoe leather reporting. We were working with the city newsroom, learning crowdsourcing techniques. It was the first time he was cold calling people, casting a wide net to try to talk with immigrant families whose children had lost a parent to COVID. He once confided in me, almost in a whisper, about how much effort it was taking for him to pick up the phone or deliver pamphlets, even to intermediaries who might help us meet grieving families. In India, he told me, journalists don't approach people man-on-the-street style. He felt deeply uneasy about speaking with strangers about something so personal as grief and loss. When he first spoke with the mother whose children would become central to our investigation, it was on the phone, a 20 or 30-minute call. He felt so proud to have accomplished that. When he had to go back to the family for a longer in-person interview, he spent hours rereading notes and pondering the most thoughtful way to ask difficult questions. After much team strategizing and preparation, I told Fazil the only thing I could think of to put him at ease. Fazil, you are an earnest reporter and a kind person. People will sense this and respond to you. He soon developed a rapport with that mother, Veronica Fletcher, and she and her 3 children, Joshua, Zachary, and Maddie, would later credit Fazil with helping to give their family a voice, some agency after a dark period. Ronnie, as she is known, told our team that Fazil was the first reporter who had bothered to ask her, "How are you?" In fact, it was only several weeks ago that Fazil and other members of our team learned about a state bill named after the family's father, Joseph Trevor Fletcher, an MTA worker who had died from COVID. The mother traces the state bill to an activism sparked in her, in part, by that first conversation with Fazil. Sometimes, as reporters, We gloss over the lasting impressions we make on the people whose experiences we help amplify. But tonight, I'd like us to remember the difference that Fazil's reporting made in one family's life. Here are a few words from Ronnie, her tribute to the conscientious reporter who she says helped our family find its way out of isolation and into a movement. The tragic loss of Fazil's life is devastating for all of his family, friends, neighbors, and coworkers, but it is also personally heartbreaking for our family. Fazil's professionalism and journalistic expertise, coupled with his empathy and compassion, were the germination for shining a spotlight on the hidden pandemic of orphan children due to COVID. Everything positive for COVID orphans and families was born out of our initial discussion and his amazing ability to make us feel comfortable enough to speak to a total stranger about our innermost feelings and the experiences of grief. Fazil was the first person to ask questions without assumptions or judgments. His kindness and compassion were a balm to our hurting souls. Fazil's life will remain eternally in the lives of every grieving COVID orphan in New York State who benefits from services and legislation born out of the incredible work he began. May Fazil Khan, an immensely talented human being with listening ears and a hearing heart, rest in peace.
Let me start by saying everyone looks very stylish, and Fazil will like that. I might sometimes unconsciously switch between the past and present tense when talking about Fazil. Please bear with me as I try to fight the new reality. Thank you all for being here today to celebrate the brief, wondrous life of Fazil Khan. I hope the bookworm in him appreciates that line. I really tried. You have already heard many glowing tributes about Fazil. However, I'm going to talk about some of Fazil's character flaws. Trust me, he has a couple. After all, what kind of journalist would not present a fair and balanced story? So here goes. One time, I sent money to Fazil to repay him for something. It was a substantial amount. This man refused it and sent the money back. So I sent it back to him, and I blocked him on Venmo. It's an easy solution when dealing with a stubbornly generous person like Fazil. Looking back, I think the only reason why he didn't try another way to transfer the money back to me was because I told him it would be offensive in my culture if he didn't. That was a big lie. My mom told me to tell him that. But it is very on brand for Fazil to make me fight to pay him, like the many times he and I would go out to eat. Another one of Fazil's flaws is that he isn't an Arsenal fan, even after my many attempts at indoctrination. And he didn't support France in the World Cup. He was supporting Argentina. He called me at 3 a.m. to get my insurance information so that he could book our COVID vaccine appointments together. That was the kind of person he was. Despite being an enviously photogenic person, he only reluctantly posed for me because he didn't approve highly of my camera skills. When Fazil and I would talk on the phone, he would often start our conversations by mispronouncing my name, the way many Americans do. Hi, Kawasi, he would say. I would also respond in equal measure, hi, Fazil. He didn't even try to let me win whenever we played cards, table tennis, or darts. And when he got obsessive about something he enjoyed, like Ted Lasso, Formula One, airplanes, or skating, he really dug his heels in. From the first time that Fazil interviewed me for a class assignment, I made it my mission to impress him with my knowledge of India so that he would think I was cool and that he would want to be my friend. I don't think he buys what I am selling. I have been reflecting on my relationship with Fazil. He and I aren't just friends. He's my confidant. We call each other Bhai, which means brother in Hindi. We were born at the beginning and at the end of the same year, and he was born on Sunday too. So if he was from Ghana, we would share the same name. We could wear the same shoes. These ones. I had many firsts with Fazil. My first goat biryani, my first garlic naan, my first iftar was with him, where I tasted the date fruit, and he taught me about its importance when breaking his fast. And my first experience of India's wonderful chai. By the way, Fazil has an elaborate process for making chai. When I needed to buy my first pair of glasses, Fazil showed me a company in India that was having a 4th of July sale. I could buy it 2 glasses for just $50, including shipping from India. But I am not sure these are enough for the bond we shared. We are also very different. Here we have a Muslim man from New Delhi, and me, some non-religious feral kid from Accra. But our love was sustained by his patience for the chaotic masterpiece that is my life, his tolerance of my tardiness, my lack of an internal compass, which meant I got lost all the time, his willingness to always do the tip calculations when we went out to eat, and his zeal to teach me and advise me about what he knew, from how to increase my credit card points to how to do quad exercises at the gym. He also taught me about the Indian social reformer Ambedkar, his connections to Colombia, and the plight of the marginalized Dalits of India. Even in death, he is continuing to teach me because I am terrified of public speaking. As I was reeling from a broken heart last year, guess who traveled to DC to comfort me and take my mind off my ex's birthday, which was that weekend? There's a big hole in my heart that nobody can attempt to replace. Who can introduce me to new Indian foods? Take me to Patel Brothers. Who shall we share our football memes with? My sadness about his untimely passing is turning to anger. If you're in a position to keep the spotlight on the issue of e-bike battery fires and fire safety in general, I urge you to please continue your watchdog role so that no other family has to deal with such a tragic loss. Because Fazil Bhai should be here with us today preparing for Ramadan, which is his favorite time of the year, we should be plotting where to eat iftar when I come to visit. We should be planning the intercity train trip across India that we talked about. I was looking forward to attending his shadi when he finally found a wife. They would eventually move to a place like London so that flights to see family in India would be easier and the time difference wouldn't be so grueling. Faith became even more important for Fazil after his dear father died in 2022. He told me the experience had made him want to strive to become a better Muslim. When he visited me twice in DC last year, he was on time for all his Salah prayers. He's a meticulous planner, and he planned to go to Umrah, the mini Hajj, and inshallah one day fulfill the Hajj itself when he had the means to. I am devastated that Fazil isn't able to realize these plans, to witness an India where Muslims live in peace, and to see his dream of a free Palestine. I am also especially saddened that Fazil isn't able to become a chachu, uncle, and watch his nieces and nephew grow up and to continue to take care of his family. I will be comforted by the many memories we shared together here in New York and in DC, and the lovely ones you have all shared online and in person with me about the time you spent with Fazil. May Allah, in His boundless mercy, grant Fazil the highest level of Jannah, and may Allah grant his grieving family the resilience to bear the loss of their golden child. Thank you. Now you will watch a lyric video of Fazil's poem, Mulakat. It was translated by Paroma's mom, who wants us to know that in English, it's not as good as it would have been in Hindi. So this is our translation of Fazil's poem, Mulakat. Enjoy.
ख्वाब और हकीकत, इन दोनों के दरमियान जो फासला है वो मिटते हुए देखा है मैंने। ख्वाबीदा आलम में ख्वाहिशों को मिलते हुए मकाम भी देखा है, और जिस लम्हे ये मोजज़ा हुआ था बस उसी लम्हे का किस्सा है ये। एक मामूली सी शाम थी वो, किसी भी और शाम की तरह, जिसमें तुम्हारे सिवा कुछ भी खास नहीं था। मुझे याद है अब भी तुम्हारा मेरे करीब आकर बैठना, यकीन मानो मेरी खुशी का कोई ठिकाना नहीं था। मानो किसी बुझे हुए चिराग को फिर से रोशन कर दिया हो, जैसे गर्मी से तपती हुई रूह पर बरसात की पहली बूंद आ गिरी हो। मुझे याद है मेरी गोद में तुम्हारा बेफिक्री में सोना, मेरा हाथ थाम कर न छोड़ना, जैसे मेरी मौजूदगी ही सब कुछ हो। मुझे भी वो हाथ छोड़ना गवारा नहीं था। दुनिया का तो जैसे कोई होश ही नहीं था। जमाने की हर शय मौजूद थी वहां, पर मेरी निगाह को तुम्हें देखने से फुर्सत कहाँ थी। मेरे इख्तियार में अगर होता तो वक्त रोक देता मैं, तुम्हें बस यूं ही देखते रहने की खातिर। और इसी नज़र और दिमाग की मसरूफियात के बीच वो लम्हा भी था जब सारी खुदाई को जैसे कोई हुक्म हुआ था, जब हर तरह के शोर में भी मानो खामोशी कायम हो गई थी, जब वक्त को अपने मिजाज से परे आहिस्ता चलने की हिदायत हुई थी, जब ज़र्रा ज़र्रा कोशिश में लगा था कि इश्क़ वाबस्ता हर जज्बात मेरे पास मौजूद हो महसूस करने को। जब अपनी तकलीफ़ों से बेखबर तुम्हारी कुर्बत में अपनी उम्र गुजारने की दिल दलीलें दे रहा था, तब पता चला कि चाहत क्या चीज़ है। तब मालूम हुआ ज़रूरत क्या चीज़ है। तब मैंने जाना मोहब्बत क्या चीज़ है। उस लम्हे से पहले, उस लम्हे के बाद बेहिसाब पल गुजरे हैं मेरी जिंदगी के। कुछ भी इसके दर्जे का नहीं तो शायद सब भूल भी गया। एक वो लम्हा, वो एहसासात भूला नहीं मैं। मोहब्बत से पहली मुलाकात भूला नहीं मैं। मोहब्बत से पहली मुलाकात भूला नहीं मैं।
Hi, my name is Bianca Palaro. Just to be clear, this was a poem Fazil wrote, and that was his voice. So Fazil was a listener, but never a silent spectator. He was our poet, our favorite advisor. He engaged eloquently at the right time with a set of curated words that resonated louder than anything else said in the room so far. He was a wise friend, a stabilizing force that could make you laugh as hard as he could make you feel moved. The depth of his character was endearing and hypnotizing. There were so many layers to his complexity that we didn't get to experience or understand, and we complained to him about it multiple times. We even called him a secret agent at some point. But the delicate glimpses we enjoyed were enough to lighten our lives and leave us in profound reverence.
Fazil was an inspiration. And like Kwasi said, not only for his fashion choices and extraordinary Bollywood dance moves, but also for his insatiable appetite for life. He led a brave existence, yet approached every endeavor with meticulous planning, like Sheridan told. He annoyingly excelled in every domain: coding, ping pong, cards, chess, everything. Sometimes it was hard to get him out of his peaceful quiet. But he had us, a group of persuasive women who would persistently text him and convince him to get out of his apartment. He came hiking to Cold Springs even though it was raining, to the beach in Long Island even though he didn't know how to swim, ice skating in Bryant Park even though he had said 1,000,000 times he wouldn't, and participated in all of our Friendsgivings, painting in Central Park and Secret Santas. He would listen to us talk about our lives for hours. But believe me, he had the power to crush you with a look or hug you with the most gentle words. Last time we saw each other, we talked about long-distance relationships. And 3 days after that, out of nowhere, on a Monday at 5 p.m. while I was at the office, he messaged me a quote from a French author that said, "Absence diminishes small loves and increases great ones, as the wind blows out the candle and fans the bonfire." To which, of course, I stubbornly replied, "But I would still miss him." "Yes," he said, "and that's perfectly natural." That was my last conversation with Fazil. I somehow now find comfort rereading that unexpected exchange of messages, and I hope you do too. Because maybe he was right. Maybe his absence will increase our love for each other. And yes, in Fazil's own words, it's perfectly natural to miss him.
Hi, everybody. I'm Paroma. Thank you all for coming. I think it's quite clear that Fazil was a deeply intellectual person. He used to send pages and pages of poetic advice to his friends. He used to write these heartbreaking poems for fun. He was an incredible friend, a calming presence, a grounding presence for so many of us. But my friendship with Fazil was a little different. Our friendship was more like that of two old Indian uncles. We used to chat about politics. He used to read the newspaper. He would talk about Jagjit Singh, who is this really old Indian ghazal singer that my grandfather loves. He would try to make me watch these old Bollywood movies that were so boring and 4 hours long, but he would insist that they would elevate my knowledge of life. And even though he was this the sophisticated intellectual, he was also, as Pooja said, secretly one of the biggest and the best gossips that I ever knew. Just like an old Indian uncle, he would pretend to be aloof and mysterious and like he didn't care, but he would show up the second there was any tea to be had. Or maybe our friendship was closer to that of a really annoying sister and a patient older brother who was pretty sick of her. I would often text Fazil over and over and over again. Those of you who know me can absolutely attest to this, that I would talk and talk and talk, and Fazil would be like, "Please, shut up." We rarely expressed vulnerability or our feelings to each other, unlike many of you guys. 90% of our chat history, our message history was me saying, "Come to a movie, come to dinner, come to this party, come, like, let's do this, let's do that." And his answer would usually always be a single syllable. "No, okay, sure, fine, great." When we hung out, I would ramble on, and he would listen patiently. And even if he won't admit it, he was enthusiastically listening. But he would respond with a slight smirk or a slight chuckle, and that's all I would ever get. But the more I got to know him, the more I saw how he showed his love in different ways. Going back through all of the photos, that some of which you guys have seen, I can see that he was always there. He was always, always, always present for big or small moments. He would stop by our apartment. Many of those photos were in our apartment. He would just stop by just to chat, just to, spend time together. He would bring food that he cooked for us. He would bring books that he liked to read. Most of the time we were just literally just sitting around and spending hours together. Every time he went to India, he'd bring back blue Lays. The Indians in the room know how good a flavor that those chips are. And he would just drop it off, like every time, without fail. He helped me move apartments twice in 1 year, or actually in 3 months. He helped us with Soma's really tedious homework, all of us, not just me. And he just shared his life with us in a really, really humble and a really, really authentic way. He never said no in the moments that mattered. And he was the kind of reliable friend that you could count on for absolutely anything, any time of the day. Fazil and I came from different parts of India. We had different backgrounds, we had different lifestyles. But for me, he was a piece of home in New York. He made New York a home for me and for all of us here. And thank you, Fazil, for being the kind of friend that is also family. Even though he made fun of me all the time for my bad Hindi, because I'm from Bombay, and he was from Delhi, and they speak good Hindi, I feel very lucky to have gotten to know him in both languages. Because I swear he was 10 times as funny, 10 times as deep, 10 times as poetic, sarcastic in Hindi. And so I'd like to say a version of this in Hindi because I know his parents are watching on the live stream and his family's watching. And also I want to prove to him that I can speak in Hindi. Just bear with me, I actually might make mistakes. So if you do speak Hindi, don't tell anyone. फाजिल मुझे बहुत चिढ़ाता था कि बॉम्बे वालों को हिंदी नहीं आती और मेरी हिंदी बहुत ख़राब है, लेकिन मैं सिर्फ थोड़े शब्द कहना चाहती हूँ फाजिल के बारे में ताकि उसकी फैमिली सुन सके। फाजिल एक ऐसा दोस्त था जो हमेशा हमेशा हमारे लिए मौजूद था, चाहे कुछ भी हो। अगर हमने उसे कभी भी एक छोटा सा मैसेज भेजा तो वो इमीडिएटली घर पे आ जाता। वो बस आता हर हफ्ते बातचीत करने के लिए, गॉसिप देने के लिए, हमारे लिए घर का खाना लेकर, बस अपना समय और अपनी ज़िंदगी बिताने के लिए हमारे साथ। मैं हमेशा बक 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 करती रहती थी और उसे परेशान करती थी, बिल्कुल एक छोटी अनोइंग सिस्टर जैसे, जब तक कि वो तंग ना हो जाए और बोले परमा प्लीज़ चुप। वो हमें शायरी सुनाता था, हमें फ़ैशन के बारे में ज्ञान देता था और हमारी हमेशा हमेशा देखभाल करता था। हम इंडिया के अलग शहरों से हैं, अलग ज़िंदगी बिताई है, लेकिन उसने मेरे लिए न्यूयॉर्क को एक घर बना दिया। वो हमेशा मेरी ज़िंदगी का एक हिस्सा रहेगा। We've always known how incredible Fazil was as a person. I think this was testament to that. And these past few days have showed us just how deeply loved he was, how big of an impact he has made on hundreds of people, I'm not even exaggerating, how big his heart was, and what a wonderful friend, colleague, and brother he was. I just don't know how we do life without him. So, Fazil, we will always love you, and you will always live on in our hearts and our memories. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Alexander Stilla. I'm a professor here at the Journalism School, and I had the good fortune of having Fazil in my class in the spring of 2021, a course called The Journalism of Ideas. And after learning the heartbreaking news of his death, I went back over some of his work and to kind of remind myself of his presence in my class. And came upon an audio piece that he did at the time I was teaching the class, in which we were doing podcasting as well as print. And so I thought of forwarding it to the people organizing this event. So I'll be very brief because I'll leave space for Fazil's words. We'll just listen to the first 3 minutes of this audio piece. But to set it up, I'll just explain that he wanted to do a piece about reaction videos to Indian movies in this country, which he was both amused and a little annoyed by. This weird phenomenon on YouTube in which Americans who knew nothing about Bollywood would get millions of views and many thousands of dollars, sort of exploiting the weird symbiosis between an Indian audience which was just sort of getting onto the internet because of the availability of inexpensive cell phones and these American purveyors of YouTube influencers who knew nothing about Bollywood but were profiting from it. And so he wanted to do this piece, and one reason to listen to it is it was an example of a young journalist overcoming a roadblock, because as he began to work on the piece, he was frustrated because he couldn't get any of the YouTubers or the counter-YouTubers in India who were criticizing these reaction videos to talk to him, and he thought that he had no peace. And I said, well, actually, no, look, you've got all this great audio because you can take advantage of the videos themselves and the audio from that, the audio from the reaction to the reaction videos in India, and do a kind of audio essay that you're curating, which is what he did, and he did it quite nicely. You'll only get a little bit of a flavor from that because for the sake of brevity we limited it to 3 minutes, but actually he develops a quite interesting set of ideas over the course of the whole longer video, but this will just give you a little bit of a flavor and to hear his voice in English rather than in Hindi. Thanks.
Of the many genres on YouTube, one of the most popular ones is reaction videos, which in a majority of cases involve someone reacting to something they know very little about. Seriously, there are hundreds of channels out there reacting to all kinds of things, and they have millions of views. But what's caught my attention is the number of channels run by people in the West that react to Indian content. Trust me, just type Reaction India in the YouTube search bar, and most of the top results will be these kinds of videos. In fact, titles of some of these are just variations on foreigners, that are usually Americans, reacting to Indian movie trailers.
Hey, welcome back to our Stupid Reactions, the Idiots. I'm Corbin, as with me as always is this idiot named Rick, and today we'll be reacting to the Gully Boy trailer.
Songs.
Hey Geek Family, we're back. This time we're going to check out an SRK song. This one is from his 2014 film, Happy New Year.
Food.
What is good, best fam? Welcome back to our channel. Tonight we are doing round 2 of trying Indian food for the first time.
Stand-up comedy videos and cricket match highlights, of course. It's this wide variety of reaction videos and essentially reacting to anything that's trending in India is why these channels have also received criticism for using the Indian audience to just drive views on the platform. These videos, some of the critics argue, end up appropriating Indian culture at times and hardly provide anything of substance when it comes to reviewing the content. But I'll talk more on this later in the episode. First, we need to understand how these channels got so big. Foreign reaction channels that focus on Indian content have really been around since 2014-15 or so, and have seen tremendous growth since then. Jabby Koe, an LA-based creator, was one of the first American YouTubers to start reacting to Indian content and is arguably the most popular one today with 1.8 million subscribers. Even though earnings of most YouTubers are usually not known and depend on the number of views and the geographic location of where those views came from, Jabby's earnings from his channel could range from $6,000 to over $80,000 per month, according to Social Blade, an American website that tracks social media statistics. But again, these could be under or overestimates and are difficult to confirm. As for Jabby's success, you could say he had the first mover advantage when he started posting these videos back in 2015. But fate worked in his favor too. How? Let's look at his relationship with India that started more than 5 years ago with one video.
Hello people, I'm Jabby Koe.
And you, Asakura?
We're gonna watch this really random trailer. It's got like over 1 million views, so I thought we might as well check it out. It's called Sala Khandus. I think it's a Bollywood movie, like an Indian movie.
Oh, okay.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bruce Shapiro. I direct the Journalism School's Dart Center for Journalism and Trauma, and I was lucky enough to spend some time with Fazil when he was a student in Ethics Essentials in the fall of 2020. There are some other veterans of that class here tonight. It was a tight group, and I would ask you to put your mind back to that time. It was the fall of 2020. It was the middle of a coronavirus pandemic. And every day, every act of reporting involved making complex ethical calculations about our own safety as journalists, the safety of sources, the safety of the public, and indeed journalism's own responsibilities to public health. We had a very tight ethics class that year, I think in part because of the complexity of the time. The final assignment in Ethics Essentials, my version of it anyway, is a blog assignment in which I ask students to reflect on their own reporting and on all the issues discussed over the course of the semester, and formulate a piece of advice, formulate some ethics principle that matters to them that they would publish as a doctrine, as advice to future journalists. Last night I was going through Fazil's blog posts and I found this. The Khan doctrine, keep it simple. I think many ethical dilemmas or issues in journalism stem from overcomplicating the things at hand. For instance, consider a journalist's relationship with a source. A journalist's equation with their source can range from casual to complex. Sometimes, depending on the situation, that equation was a data journalist. That equation could even affect the reporting or the journalist herself. We try to navigate this in all kinds of ways, but discussions in class and my own reporting show that having a simple and clear conversation about issues, if there are any, is probably the best way out for all those involved. Similarly, as I discussed in a previous blog post on the investigative series in India concerning electoral bonds, a scandal that is actually just now, I think, still floating around the courts in India. It's been in the headlines. Investigations that have not necessarily attempted some out-of-this-world reporting maneuvers are as good as any other if they serve the public interest. This series of stories, reported last year with the simple help of documents accessed by an RTI activist, revealed how the government pushed forward with introducing the Electoral Bonds Bill to the Parliament despite staunch opposition from the Election Commission and the Reserve Bank of India. And similarly, in the Rolling Stone case study, we observed how a journalist offered a lead to make her story more sensational, but which was not validated by her reporting. Telling the story as simply as it is may not seem the most remarkable thing ever, but that's how it should be done. If the story was interesting enough for you to report it, then it'll be interesting for the reader as well, without any unnecessary color added to it. A humane and honest relationship with your sources and being as straightforward with your stories and the news gathering process as possible are simple things that can, in my opinion, help in cutting down on the number of ethical questions you encounter in your career.
नमस्कार
मैं चाहता हूं कि आप सभी मुझे भी अपने गम में शामिल समझें। आपकी पीड़ा मैं समझता हूं। फाजिल खान की मौत की जब खबर आई कि एक दुर्घटना में आग लगने से उनकी मौत हो गई है, और ट्विटर पर मैं देख रहा था कि कोलंबिया जर्नलिज्म स्कूल के छात्र बहुत आहत हैं, विचलित हैं, उनके दोस्त भी। लेकिन जब पूजा ने संपर्क किया तो उसके बाद से फाजिल की पुरानी रिपोर्ट में पढ़ने लगा। बहुत सारी रिपोर्ट से गुज़रने के बाद मुझे बेहद हैरानी हुई कि इतनी कम उम्र में कोई लड़का इतनी मुस्तैदी से, चुस्ती से रिपोर्टिंग कर रहा है, और वो हम सब की निगाह से चूक गया और दुनिया से इस तरह से चला गया कि जैसे आप किसी दूसरे शहर में पहुंचने के लिए सबसे अच्छी रेलगाड़ी पकड़ने के लिए भागे भागे प्लेटफॉर्म पर जाते हैं और वो गाड़ी आपके पहुंचने से पहले जा चुकी होती है। मैं इस बात को समझता हूं कि किसी को भी अच्छा रिपोर्टर बनने में, चीज़ों पे नज़र गड़ाने में, उसे पेश करने में कम से कम 10 साल के अभ्यास की ज़रूरत होती है। इससे कम की प्रैक्टिस में आप बहुत गहराई के साथ जर्नलिज़्म के प्रोफेशन के भीतर की जो खूबियां हैं, बारीकियां हैं, उसे आप नहीं पकड़ पाते हैं। लेकिन मैं हैरान था कि फाजिल की रिपोर्ट में इतनी मजबूती है और कम उम्र के बाद भी वे बिल्कुल ट्रेंड, सिद्धहस्त रूप से अपनी रिपोर्ट कर रहे हैं, और डेटा को लेकर जो उनकी समझ है, जो उनकी उस्तादियाँ हैं, अब उनका काम ही हमारे लिए वर्तमान है। इसलिए जब मैं उनके काम के बारे में बात कर रहा हूँ तो मुझसे था का इस्तेमाल नहीं हो पा रहा है, में ही बात करनी पड़ रही है। तो उस फाजिल की सारी रिपोर्ट में डेटा की जो प्रस्तुति है और जिस तरह से उसने पेश किया है, मुझे यही लगा कि एक बहुत अच्छी नज़र वाला पत्रकार हम सब के बीच से बहुत जल्दी चला गया। उसकी जो सलाहियत है, एबिलिटी है, कई तरह के कॉम्प्लेक्स डेटा को लेकर उसे सुलझाकर आम लोगों को पेश कर देने की, आम लोगों के लिए, ये उस उम्र के हिसाब से बहुत ज़्यादा अच्छी है। मुझे बहुत दुख भी हो रहा है कि फाजिल अब नहीं है। वो अब ये नहीं जान पाएगा कि उसने इस छोटी सी ज़िंदगी में जो काम किया है, उसने कितनी बारीकी से और बहुत अच्छे तरीके से उसने काम किया है। कोई भी उसके काम को देखेगा तो इस नतीजे पर ही पहुंचेगा कि उनके बीच से एक अच्छा पत्रकार चला गया। ये समय ऐसा है जब अच्छा पत्रकार बहुत मुश्किल से मिलता है, क्योंकि अच्छा पत्रकार बनने की जो प्रक्रिया है, प्रोसेस है, वो ख़त्म कर दिया गया है। फिर भी इसके बाद भी फाजिल खान जैसा कोई नवयुवक इतनी अच्छी रिपोर्टिंग कर रहा है और वो इस तरह से चला गया। ये आप दोस्तों के लिए, उनकी बहन तनुजा खान के लिए, उनकी माँ के लिए, जाहिर है फाजिल की सलाहियत से कहीं ज़्यादा बड़ा गम है, और कोई शब्द इस गम से उबरने का रास्ता नहीं दिखा सकता है। लेकिन हम सब जो एक पत्रकार को उसके काम से जानते हैं, किसी भी पत्रकार को उसके काम से जानेंगे और सीखते हुए अपने आप को बेहतर करने वाले लोग हैं, हमने एक टॉर्च बेयरर खो दिया। काश ऐसा नहीं होता। फाजिल जहाँ भी पत्रकारिता करता, जिस भी देश में, जिस भी संस्थान के साथ, उसे तो चमकना था, लेकिन शायद बादलों को ये बात पसंद नहीं आई। मैं इतना ही इस वक्त कहना चाहता हूँ, और मुझे ये भी अच्छा लगा कि आप लोग अपने दोस्त को कितना प्यार करते हैं कि आपने फाजिल के मेमोरियल के लिए सबको जोड़ा, मुझे भी जोड़ा और अपनी बात कहने का मौका दिया। आपका गम, आपका दुख, उसका छोटा सा हिस्सा, उसका बड़ा सा हिस्सा, मालूम नहीं उसका आकार कैसा है, मगर वो मेरे साथ भी है। मैंने जब से फाजिल की रिपोर्ट पढ़ी है, आज दिन भर जब मैं अपनी किसी रिपोर्ट के लिए शूटिंग कर रहा था, उसके बारे में सोच रहा था। और हम सब इसकी तलाश में रहते हैं कि काश कोई नया मिल जाता, काश कोई फुर्तीला मिल जाता, काश कोई ऐसा मिल जाता जो हमारे लिए छड़ी का काम करता, पकड़कर चलने का। हम जैसे लोग जो अब बुज़ुर्ग हो रहे हैं, बूढ़े हो रहे हैं, तो वो छड़ी चली गई। आप सबका दोस्त और हम सब के लिए एक अच्छा पत्रकार चला गया।
I'll just take a moment to summarize what he said. So this is Ravish Kumar, a very important journalist in India, one of Fazil's favorite, who he was fortunate enough to have met a couple of months ago when he was here in Columbia School of Journalism. The day Fazil met Ravish, he got one of Ravish's books and stood in the line like a giddy child and got it signed and was really shy to get a picture, but he finally did. His sister, when we didn't manage to speak to her, told us that Fazil aspired to be like Ravish Kumar, and Paroma was just telling us that he gives a lot of Fazil vibes, which is very calm, collected when he talks. This is who Fazil would have been grown up to be. What he said was, usually it takes a journalist about 10 to 12 years to get the kind of nuances that you do get in your reporting. But while he was reading Fazil's work, he realized that those nuances were already present. And when he looked at his work, especially to do with data and how he merged that with reporting, he was shocked that we lost someone so talented so soon. He also struggled to say it in past tense, is what he was trying to tell us. Another thing he talks about is that we lost a torchbearer, but we shouldn't forget the work that he did and continue doing that. Thank you.
We wanted to say thank you to everyone for coming out, and on behalf of Columbia Journalism School and
the Hechinger Report.
The Hechinger Report. We wish you our deepest condolences for everyone who knew and loved and admired Fazil Khan. Thank you for coming out.
Thank you. You all just did an absolutely beautiful job. I got to know so much more about the man who we've worked with and admired and feel so lucky to have worked with. I also started this conversation by saying how angry we are that this death did not have to happen. So I hope all of you here who are journalists will pick up that mantra, find out more, not only about this, but about all the injustices that Fazil cared so deeply about. I know there's a reception following.
And one final point is that the journalism school will contribute $5,000 to the scholarship fund that you announced.
Thank you so much. And please find me or any one of the Hechinger Report staff later tonight at the event, and we would like to tell you a little bit more about this fund and ways you can contribute. And you all just did a very beautiful job tonight. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
होठों से छू लो तुम
Hello everyone, the food is across the hall.